Do you know what's the difference between the Queen's Indian defense and the English defense? Is there any difference between those defenses? I've been asked these questions lately a lot by my younger pupils. They know I wrote a book on the English defense and they find it so close and so similar to the Queen's Indian defense. But of course, the answer is no. The English and the Queen's Indian have points in common, a lot of borrowed ideas from the Queen's Indian into the English defense, but there are some important advantages of playing the English defense. In this video, I will show you three main ideas in which you can benefit from playing the English defense instead of the Queen's Indian defense. Okay, let's try to understand the differences. We have to deal with the move orders. In the right hand, I have the Queen's Indian defense, whereas in the left hand, I have the English defense starting position. I'll show you the moves. d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, b6, and we reach the Queen's Indian defense. The most common line is g3. This is the main line for white. And e3 is also very popular. Knight c3 as well. I'll show you how to handle these three lines in the English defense. Okay, d4, e6, c4, b6 is the starting position of the English defense. Normally, white can build a center. This is the main line. But some people refrain from doing that, trying to take the game into a Queen's Indian. After bishop b7, they can play g3. Check, bishop d2, bishop takes f3, e takes f3, bishop takes d2, queen takes d2, and this unbalanced pawn structure is more solid for black as we have only one pawn island, and this can be an interesting way to create an unbalance right from the opening. I'm not saying this is better for black, but this is really interesting, as will be shown in the game Bellotti versus Sulava in 1992. On the other hand, when we play bishop b7, if our opponents play e3, we don't have to transpose to the Queen's Indian by playing knight f6. We have f5. Now, after bishop d3, knight f6, castle, we are playing an interesting line of the Dutch defense, in which we have a very nice control over e4. Knight c3, castle, and white can try to play e4, but we will play knight e4. And of course, every time white plays, for example, knight c3, we may transpose into a hybrid of the Nimzoindian, the Deutsch, and the Queen's Indian defense. This is typical from the English defense. We mix all those ideas to our advantage. We have a fantastic control of e4. And okay, we can use it to create an attack. For example, bishop takes e3, b takes e3, castle. And okay, our idea is more or less the following: knight e4, rook f6, and rook g6 or rook h6. And we have a very interesting attack, counting in this powerful knight and the mighty bishop in the long diagonal. This can be really crazy for whites. This can be really dangerous for whites. Okay, so in case white plays knight c3, we can count on bishop b4. And we are trying to play a Nimzo, but this is the kind of Nimzo that can also transpose into a Dutch defense in which we have a fantastic control of e4. Those are the main advantages of not playing the Queen's Indian defense and playing the English defense instead. We are flexible with this pawn, and this can be really helpful. Okay, we can arrive to a Nimzoindian, but in which we can play f5. This is the third advantage when we compare the English defense to a normal Queen's Indian defense, in which the knight is on f6 and the pawn is on f7. So the pawn doesn't participate in the control of e4. Okay, now let's see the game. Let's analyze the game. This is an instructive game played by Bellotti versus Grandmaster Nenad Sulava that unfortunately a couple of years ago passed away. A very strong player and very sympathetic person. Something really important is that after c4 we play b6 and we have a complete set of ideas to face the English opening. And like in my book, I call this the English versus the English, but really works pretty well. So I highly advise you to play b6. And this is a way sometimes to transpose into the English defense right away. But some others, you'll have some ideas to face the English opening, what is fantastic, by the way. So after g3, the idea is bishop b4. After bishop d2, that is the most normal answer by white, we play bishop takes f3. G takes f3, bishop takes d2, queen takes d2. And here there are several ways to play d5, but I think the most effective is knight f6. The alternative is playing d5 right away, but I'd rather play it after knight f6. Not knight e7, because then d5 is really effective. Okay, knight f6, bishop d2, d5, by the way, could be answered with castle, knight c3, and c6. This is the idea, to challenge and to destroy white center. For example, bishop e2, knight a6, c takes d5, c takes d5, and knight b4. This was played by Mikhail Sarin in a game played in 2017. He equalized easily and didn't suffer a bit. So against d5 we have this idea played by Sarin, knight a6, c6 and knight a6, and seems really comfortable. Bishop g2, d5, f4, knight c6. This is an important move. We want to put the knight on e7, and this will solidify our position a lot because we will avoid f5 and will defend this d5 at the same time. So this is so important that Sulava played it before castling. Castle, castle, rook c1, and knight e7. Now, c5. Okay, what we're trying to reach this kind of position where we are playing against the Isolani and we have better pawn structure. 2 island versus 3, and they have a double pawn. Okay, white has to trust in dynamics, playing something like f5 at the right moment, but doesn't seem to be likely. I don't think white is going to do it. So after knight e7, c5, knight f5, queen d3, b takes e5, and rook takes e5. Somehow white assesses badly the position, trying to attack this pawn in the open file, leaving this as a weakness will be disastrous for him. It was better to play d takes e5, even though after queen b8, b3, and queen b4, I think black is doing really nice. Okay, the game continued with rook takes e5, rook b8, and of course b3 would be answered by rook b4. I guess white should have played something like queen c3. Oh no, because queen c3 would fall into this tactic. Knight d7, rook takes c6, c7, and knight d4. Now threatening this, and knight b5, and I guess white is in trouble because of course this loses the exchange in the game. Okay, white played knight d2, leaving the b2 pawn. Okay, the knight is coming to f3 or b3 to defend d4, but the b2 pawn is undefended. Can we capture? Would you capture this pawn? Okay, if we capture, the rook can get trapped by knight b3. Do you think Sulava captured it? Yes, he did. Because after knight b3, okay, his rook is almost trapped, but by now it's an active piece that hits f2. And he took advantage of it by playing knight g4. Now he plays h3, allowing knight f2, with the idea of chasing the rook, back and forth and forcing a move repetition. But Sulava had it calculated and won the game by playing knight h3. He will take several pawns and will leave white's king really exposed. So after bishop takes h3, rook e3, queen h1, knight g3, queen h2, queen h4. And okay, these pawns are really weak and white's king is really exposed. Things are getting real nasty for white, and even some pieces can hang. Bishop g2, knight and queen takes f4, rook f1, and simply queen g4, and white resigned. See, there is nothing he can do to stop black threats of, okay, something like taking would be okay, even rook e2, sometimes even rook takes b3 and queen takes d4. White is having a really difficult time. So as you can see, we have 3 ideas to make a difference, and to answer this question, the English defense is different from the Queen's-Indian, is way more tricky. We can't say it's superior because it's not true. The Queen's-Indian is really a solid line, but in this way we give our opponents plenty of things to worry about. So I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.